Hey, good evening. It's Jim Howard with Trinity Security Allies. We're going to get started here in a minute. We're just letting some people come online. Thanks for coming out tonight. We're looking forward. This is a new training that we're looking at. We've run into a couple of different things here recently that we kind of want to share. We've looked at some of the stuff that's been going on behind us, and we just kind of want to get some new feedback from y'all, questions and answers. And so when you do ask a question, please go to our Q&A. And Wendy, my beautiful wife, is helping me with this. She is online. She has muted herself, but we're going to get started here in a moment and talk about new threats to the church post-election. Okay, we're going to get started here. We're going to be talking about some of the new threats that we've kind of seen. And when we talk about threats, I think we need to break it down into two separate type categories. One is an actual threat, a physical threat that may happen to your church. The other one, I'm going to call it disorderly conduct or a disorderly person or disruptive person. But we'll get into that in a little bit. Last week, we talked about the testimonial breakdown. We're going to change it. We're going to call it casual conversation analysis. I thank Max Creason for that. We're also going to be seeing how the churches have kind of grown or changed since the reopening from COVID-19. But before we get started, one of the things I'd really like to do is just take a moment and remember that this time in 2017, we were all shocked when we heard about the shooting that happened at Sutherland Springs, Texas, November the 5th, 2017, where 26 innocent people lost their lives and 20 people survived. As you know, we went there in July, and it was very surreal. It was just a place that you kind of have to go and see, even though the building's been painted. You see the white inside. You still see on the floor where bullets had hit the floor and ricocheted off. And of course, the chairs are all for the victims that passed away. We went there for a kind of a celebration. They were having a fundraiser for Chris Workman, Julie Workman's son, who had come to our conference 2 years, not this year, but last year, and spoke. But they were having a fundraiser for him to help him build a house, get him into the house. Because he was shot twice and paralyzed from the waist down. You would have never known the incident had happened. The people were very full of love, God's faces were, I mean, you could see God in all of them that were there, and it was quite the experience. But I'd just like to take a moment, just a moment, and remember those families, those that lost friends, lost loved ones, and of course, the survivors. We've kind of seen a sign of the sign of the change, sign of the times. I did a blog on what happened in France. It can't happen here, or could it? Where we saw multiple attacks in France. There was a teacher and some church members in Nice, France, that were killed, where a terrorist went inside. The terrorist attacked the teacher because of a picture that he had shown to his class. And the 3 church members that happened to be in church were just there worshiping when it happened. And this was on a Thursday. This wasn't even on a Sunday. The person went in there and killed the 3 people, stabbed them and killed them. The French president promised to immediately increase the number of soldiers deployed to protect schools and religious sites from around 3,000 military personnel to 7,000. Now, I just got to thinking about that when I was reading that article on it, And I was just thinking, it must be really sad that you have to have military personnel protecting your churches. And surely we haven't gotten to that point right now. But then I started thinking about what's been going on around our country. We were having a terrible time of civil unrest. There's total anarchy in Portland as the National Guard and the police seize loaded rifles, explosives, knives from a huge mob of rioters. And this was just last night. And the election hasn't even been decided yet. But they've been already talking about having the civil unrest no matter who won. And so we have these things that are happening out here, but yet people kind of look at me or say, well, but this is in the street or downtown or something like that. Well, the St. Andre Bessette Catholic Church in Portland, Oregon was damaged and vandalized during this time of civil unrest. So it does happen to our churches, to the buildings. Fortunately, nobody was in there, but when they talk about they were getting ready for these civil unrest or these riots, they were talking about boarding up their businesses and boarding up houses and different places like that. Well, if your church is downtown in the midst of this, you're going to be boarding that, and people probably aren't coming to your church during this time frame. So it does and has already affected us. Now, of course, when all this has been going on, all this has been happening, all these riots, these protests, all these different things that have been happening, we've been seeing them also against our churches. There were Black Lives Matter stormed a Baptist church in Troy, New York, and then the Celebrate Church in Austin, Texas, had LBGT and Antifa demand church leave the building over sexuality. And they were talking about the biblical views of marriage and sexuality. And also because the church had posted on their website, that they believed that marriage was between one man and one woman, a biblical stance that they had made. But we've already started to see some of these things happening. We also see that you have to be careful about your social media, because Tony Perkins did an article with the Family Research Center that said, like a tweet, lose a lease, where a teacher who didn't even attend the Church of the Highlands, wasn't even a member, didn't even attend, but was a teacher and was following the pastor, really stalking the pastor on his social media, and saw that he had liked some tweets that she did not like. She felt that it was racist because it was tweets in reference to the president. And so she went to the school board and they kicked them out of 2 of their places. Now they have 60,000 members. They were leasing 2 schools from the city, and they lost the lease on those 2 schools. They were spending almost $1 million there in revenue a year. And plus they had free healthcare. They had the Campus of Hope, which gave free healthcare to the people in the area. But now they couldn't even do that because they felt that he liked a tweet. They were stalking him. They were following. We have to be careful. The churches are under the microscope. When we think that, it's the police departments or the cities or all these different things like that, hate to tell you folks, but so are we. So we have these things, what we call the outside threats. And where we look at the outside threats, we look at Antifa. And what that group is, it started in Europe. It's against neo-Nazi or anti-racist, but it's also against the alt-right, and it is anti-government, and a lot of times it targets law enforcement. Well, when we say alt-right, everybody that follows Donald Trump or agrees with Donald Trump or is a conservative, they feel that you are an alt-right. So beware on some of the things that you may say, because just like in Austin, they may show up outside your church to protest. Now, when we get into the Black Lives Matters, a lot of people don't understand. The Black Lives Matter movement is not really what we're kind of talking about when we say Black Lives Matters. Yes, all life matters. We can all agree with that. It doesn't have anything to do with what color a person is. We all agree that all lives matter. And of course, we want to see changes in all of it, in these issues that are coming up. But when you read truly what Black Lives Matters is all about, they proudly proclaim its belief that all Black Americans should receive a guaranteed minimum income and free healthcare, schooling, food, real estate, gender reassignment surgery, and abortion. Bring an end to all jails as we know them, disrupt the traditional family, demand reparations on behalf of foreign nations, and form a global liberation movement that will overturn U.S. and capitalism. That's what they really, that's a threat out here to us. And when the government steps in and starts to shut down these riots that happen in the city, watch out for your churches, because they still want to make a point and they're still out here. So we have to be careful when we're watching this to make sure that we're paying attention to the current temperature in our area, in the neighborhood. Black Lives Matters says that if the country doesn't give us what we want, then we will bring down the system and replace it. The president said, he said that he could be speaking figuratively or literally. It's a matter of interpretation. Now, this was an interview that was done on the story with Martha McCowan with Hawk Newsom, one of their leaders. But back in June 2020, Shaun King, the controversial Black Lives Matters activist, known for pushing false claims, called the destruction of Jesus Christ statues and Christian churches for their depiction of the white Holy Family, which King argued are forms of white supremacy and racist propaganda that promote oppression. So what did we see after that? Vandalisms went on the rise. We saw a beheading of a Virgin Mary statue in Chattanooga, Tennessee. On June the 20th, Black Lives Matter protesters in Los Angeles tore down and spilled red paint on the statue of Father Sierra statue in San Francisco, Golden Gate Park. Church vandals have also targeted other protesters. Now, understand this, everybody has a right to freedom of speech, but a Black Lives Matter banner in front of a Westminster Presbyterian Church in Auburn, New York was replaced after the word black was cut out. So it happens on both sides. Miami, someone beheaded a statue of Jesus Christ in a courtyard of a South Florida church, an act of vandalism now being investigated by the Miami-Dade Police Department and Department of Homeland Security. And in El Paso, Texas, a Jesus statue was beheaded because the suspect said the skin color of the statue was the wrong color. Now, we've also seen it locally here. We've seen two churches that have had flammable material spread all over the church and set on fire. The one in Ocala, the suspect drove into the church with his vehicle, dumped 10 gallons of gasoline in the church and set it on fire while people were in the church. Now, the one in Tampa, the guy broke into the church at nighttime and set flammable fluids all over the auditorium or the worship center and set it on fire. So we're seeing these attacks locally and all over the country. It has started on us already, but that is the outside, or the people that we really don't know. Most of these people that have been arrested for these vandalisms had nothing to do with the churches themselves. They just don't like the church. They are listening to the outside threats out here and taking it out on the churches. And now the inside threat, and we've talked about this a lot, and we've shown this video, the picture below, John MacArthur, who had the guy that stepped up on the stage and disrupted the whole church service. We know of those. We know of those. And DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, back several months ago, told us to dust off our safety procedures and policies because of chatter that was going around on the internet of just hate. And it was spreading fear. But they warned us and told us to make sure that we were ready, we were prepared. Now, they had no credible threats, but yet they wanted us to be prepared because of incidences that were happening, or they were listening, or they were hearing. Look, I just showed you the Tale of Two Cities. We just talked about that. Like a tweet, lose a leap. I mean, these things are happening. The vandalism, the destructions, the things that we're seeing that are happening to the churches on the outside, but now we're starting to see them come into the inside. But this is where I think we don't understand something. When we talk about an inside threat, we've got to realize that there's kind of two different types. And the one that we're talking about tonight is the disruptive person. And the disruptive person doesn't have to get up on the stage to cause a disruption in your church. It can also happen in your congregation. It can happen in your children's ministry. It can happen anywhere inside your church where people are gathered. And this is what we're going to be talking about. When we came back after COVID-19, when we started to come back into the churches, we realized that there were going to be people that were coming into our church that were going to be hurting because of a loss of a job or health issues. Domestic violence was on the rise. Drug overdoses, we saw an increase in them. And of course, suicides were up. There were those that came into our church that felt like the COVID-19 virus was a hoax or a government conspiracy. And that's the ones that we're starting to kind of see right now that are coming into our church. But here is this thing that we need to pay attention to. We don't know who they are. Now, of course, we can have the prophets that come in, but when we're standing at the door greeting people, this is normally what we see. This is who we see coming into our churches because they're excited about getting back into the churches. Now, we do have some. We're not at 100% capacity. I'm really not for sure of any church in the area that is, because there are still those that worry about being exposed. So far, praise God that we haven't had any in our church as far as exposures in the worship center or anything like that. We're still taking the precautions. We're wearing masks. We're trying to distance ourselves from the different things that the CDC has asked us to do. We're working on that. But here's the thing that I've really noticed. When these people come in that look like the ones that are on the screen, if you seriously sit down and talk with them, there are some issues. There are some issues. I will tell you that I was affected by COVID-19 because of the lockdown. I didn't want to be locked up like that. It bothered me. We had churches that postponed training. I like to get out and do the training. I like to get out and be with the people. I like to get out and talk to other safety team members. So it affected me also. And I was so ecstatic, happy when we got to get back into the church. But then we started talking about things and we kind of, started remembering what was going on in the country, and with everything that was happening, the political point of view and the economy and all these different things like that. Sometimes you would take a look at a person and it would change, and it would almost be like this right here. And this is your possible threat. This right here could be the disruptive attendee that shows up at your church that 5 minutes ago was smiling because they were excited about getting back into the church. But now something, while they had gotten in, had triggered them and caused them to become a little bit upset at what they were hearing, what they were seeing. We had people that wanted to take pictures the first weekend we were there at church, and we told them no. And the reason why is we didn't want them to post it on Facebook. We're back in church. Now, inside our worship center, we're doing social distancing. And so we tell people that if they don't want to wear their mask, they don't have to. But yet we were afraid of letting people put that out on Facebook or social media that we were back into the church because of what might be said about what was going on. Now, of course, we've kind of opened up to full capacity. It's a little bit different now. We're all adults. We're telling each other that if you feel like wearing a mask, please do. If you don't. Inside the worship center. Now, when we're not socially distancing like we don't in our gathering or the area that we meet and greet and things like that, we are asking people to wear their mask. But when you see the people that come in that seem so excited about being back to church, 20 minutes later, you're seeing them upset. You're seeing them upset. So, we go from this to this in a matter of minutes. And so it's one of those type of things that we need to be prepared for. We did a series, Johnny, our pastor, did a series on good news in a divided America. And it was turn off the news, quit watching the news, God is in control. All these different things that Christians really truly need to hear during times of issues and problems and all the stuff that we've been going through. But yet one of the services that we did, we had a guest pastor come in and do it. It was on racism. And he did a good job. I was really impressed. And a person that could be in this crowd right here after the service was over walked up and wanted to start an argument with the pastor about really the pastor was the racist person and everything he was saying wasn't true. Well, of course, we stepped in. We were there next to the pastor. The pastor kind of just didn't pull us in, didn't want us in it. He just let this guy kind of rant for a little bit. And while he ranted, the pastor just stood there and answered his questions just perfectly. I was really impressed with how he was handling it. But then after a little bit, the pastor just looked at him and said, listen, I have other people I want to talk to. Do you mind? And the guy stepped away. Well, when he stepped away, he came in my direction. And the first thing I noticed about him was that he wanted to start an argument over just anything. God is not everywhere. We had a baptism where it wasn't during the service because it was a younger teenager that was wanting just friends and family to be there while they did the baptism. And he said, then it's not a true baptism. He wanted to argue. He was disruptive. He could have easily started something anywhere, an argument anywhere, but I just deflected it, would not go down with it, would not even listen to him. I mean, I listened to him, but I just told him over and over and over again that we were going to agree to disagree. I was not going to go down that rabbit hole to get into an argument when really all he was trying to do was start the argument. So these are the things that we need to be paying attention to. And so because of this, we need to start doing a little more training. And this is where we get back into the casual conversation analysis. We need to be listening to people when they show up on our campus, especially people that you do not know. Now I'm going to show you a picture. This was 2 Sundays ago at our church. And I want you to tell me who is the disruptive person inside the church. Now, this was a church of worship. This was during praise and worship time. The music was being played. People were singing, all these things like this. But who was being the disruptive person in here? To the point, this person was so disruptive that it took the pastor off his game. Now, let's think about that for a second. If the pastor can't get up and preach his sermon, can't get up and do what he's supposed to be doing, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. But the thing that concerned me about this, and the thing that really bothered me about this person on multiple occasions in different areas in the church said things that caused other people concern, but nobody told the safety team. Nobody told the safety team at all. It wasn't until he had come into the worship center and made a statement to somebody that it was brought to my attention that I needed to look at him and I needed to pay attention to him. And so what I'm trying to get at is during this holiday season, we're going to have a lot of people that are still hurting. They're still recovering. They may not have the Christmas that they want to have. They may not be able to do the things that they've done in the past because of the shutdown, because of the lockdown, because of not being able to work or their job going the wrong way, people losing their businesses. We've seen it. It is going to be a time. I mean, we already know that sometimes Christmas is just really hard on a lot of people. Loved ones are not going to be in the family anymore. They passed away last year. All these different things that add additional stress to an already stressful time. And I mean, if we're not in stressful times right now, I don't know what is. It has been difficult for me just to kind of like go out and relax because of everything that has been happening in this country. But we need to trust in God. We need to make sure that we understand that He is still out here with us. He is still out here to help us. All we have to do is reach out to Him. But if you don't know who the disruptive person is in your congregation, you need to be talking to everybody. This person started off in the children's ministry. He got upset. He argued with 2 different volunteers over 2 seemingly, non-important things. He then went to the counter and wanted to sign up immediately. This was his first time here, but he wanted to volunteer, which to me is a little bit of a red flag because you don't even know if you like the church or not. This was his first time to our church, but he immediately wanted to volunteer right then and there. And so as the person was talking to him about that there's a record check done on people, he got a little bit upset about that portion of the application to be a volunteer here at the church. So that was another red flag. And then he went all the way down front and sat down front, right down front row where the pastor, his wife, his son were sitting. And then he proceeded to just be really animated. So after this was all over with, the pastor came to me. I was sitting watching the person the whole time. We had another safety team member that was right next to him. It wasn't like he was going to disrupt the service, but he already had. He already had. He was praising God, and then the next moment he was sitting in the chair crying hysterically. He would be standing up and praising God, and then he'd sit back down and cry hysterically. So we had a talk. We're going to be talking about the training this weekend, but it's just one of these things of where these people are starting to slip into our congregations, and we need to be listening to them, because if a person, and this is what you got to understand, when a person comes to church, they have a reasonable expectation of safety. And if they start to feel unsafe inside your church, they're probably not going to come back. They're probably going to watch it online. Remember, we do still have that out here. And this is one of the reasons why we feel like, and I've had people come to me and tell me, hey, I don't want to come to church anymore because I can sit in my pajamas and watch it online. Well, that's really not the way it's supposed to be. But people with health conditions, we do understand those things. People that have underlying conditions that might not feel ready to come back into the church, we understand that. Those that are, cannot get out or homebound, we understand that this is really a great thing that we're doing right here by putting it online so people can see it. But yet, if people don't feel safe inside your church, then they're not going to come back to your church, or they're going to be speaking to your pastor and complaining about it. And this is where the training needs to get into play. After I had an opportunity to talk to the two people in the children's ministry and said, we needed to know this information immediately. Now, a safety team member was back there. He handled the guy, but he didn't realize it had gotten kind of the way it had gotten, the discussions that were going on. He knew the guy was upset because he walked in, wanted to drop his child off and get into the worship center so he could get ready for church. But yet, the safety team member just took him aside and helped him fill out the paperwork and did all the necessary things. He diffused the situation, but in the same time, he was having another argument with one of the other volunteers. So we need to know as soon as possible that this person is having a bad day, may need some help, because we talk about this. There's three types of people that come into our church, and there are those that are hurting. And we need to make sure that we're reaching out to those people and helping. When he sat down and started to cry hysterically in the chair, I immediately called one of the pastors to get a pastor over there to talk to him. But the pastor, when he walked out, the guy was back up on his feet and was singing and praising and doing other things that we'll talk. If you come on this Saturday, we'll talk about a lot more of what he was doing. But there were just things that we needed to be aware of, and it didn't happen. So this gets into why we need to be doing some training before the Christmas holidays. Now, planning for your holidays. Start planning now by getting the dates. I know that we're going to have at least 7 services. So I need to start planning right now, getting together my team so that we can have enough people that covers every time we have the church doors open. Meet with your staff and your leaders of the church and ask them, one of the things that you really need to do is kind of know what we're going to be doing as far as the services go. What is going to be on stage? We had one year where they were hitting an anvil, a piece of steel with a drill bit, a saw bit, and causing sparks to go across the stage. Well, they kind of needed a fire extinguisher there in case something caught on fire, but we did not know about it until we saw the first showing of it. And then we kind of got really prepared real quick. But we need to meet with our staff and our church leaders and make sure that we know exactly what's going on, what services are, look, if you have animals, sometimes they bring animals in. Anything that might be out of the usual services, you need to know about it. Then you need to get your staff and your volunteers together and do some training on what you can expect during these Christmas holidays. As we've said, it is going to be a rough Christmas holiday for some people. And we need to make sure that we're there to help them. And we need to make sure that if they need something, that we are there for them. And then the other thing I want to talk about is that you need to be networking with other churches. That is why we're doing these network meetings right now. We have one that's coming up this Saturday at our church, Generations Christian Church. You can go out online and you can find out about it and register for it, because we're going to be talking about this person that came into our church and truly disrupt the church, but yet in a way kind of didn't disrupt the church, because he was in the, we knew who he was and what he was doing, but yet he didn't disrupt it enough to where we took him out. We asked him to leave, but he was disrupting the church he upset the pastor. He got the pastor off he needs to be ready to get up and preach, and he was off his game, and we saw it. And so, like I said, we're working on making sure that we don't do that again. And of course, when you're making these plans, make sure that you include local law enforcement. Networking, like I said, this Saturday, the 7th, we're going to be at Generations Christian Church, 1540 Little Road in Trinity. It's going to be from 9 o'clock to 11. And anybody that can come out, please do come out, because we're going to be covering a lot of stuff, a lot of information. Okay. Always, 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 if you can, have your local law enforcement on campus if possible during the Christmas season. Just have them out there. If they're directing traffic and driving through your lots, please have them out there, because it's just a little bit of added protection, and it's a deterrent if all they do is just have a police car sitting out there. But have them out there if you can. If you can afford it, do it. Okay, Wendy, we're going to open it up.
As of right now, we don't have any questions. I do want to mention that on November 17th, we're going to be having a Church Safety Network group meeting in Polk County. And then we're also trying to confirm the plans for Charlotte and Sarasota counties. So I'm working on that. We don't have any questions. Now's your time to ask.
Because if not, I'm going to close this up. Let y'all go back to what you were doing, watching the news. Please turn off the news. Get some peace. Pray a little bit. Read the Bible some. Just get out of the news right now. Let it go for a little bit. Because if you're like us, we watch it all the time. We're seeing all these things that are happening out here. It is just one of these things that we need to make sure that we just keep focused on God, on Christ, and what he wants us to be doing right now. And one of the things he doesn't want us to be doing is arguing or bickering or being mad or upset. He wants us to focus on him. So let's do that. Let's please try to do that. Just pray for this country. We're going to be okay. I promise you. We're going to be all right.
All right, go ahead and close it up. There's no questions. Oh, hold on. News is more fuel for civil unrest. That's from James Shoemaker.
And that's the truth. And that's the truth.
And we have one. Just a thank you so much for your valuable time and efforts. You're appreciated.
All right. Once again, just want to let you know the book, we're looking at getting it at the end of December. It seems the publishing company is working with us. I'm going to get a copy of it here soon. I can read through and see where they've made the changes. If you would like a copy, it's a donation to the ministry. Helps us cover for the book. $25 will get you the paperback, and the 30 plus will get you a hard copy. But we're really excited about the progress of what's going on. All right, Church Safety Network meeting, holiday preparations. This Saturday, November the 7th at 9 o'clock a.m. We're going to open the doors at 8:30 so people can get in, because we want to get through. There's a lot of information we want to put out here. And it's at Generations Christian Church, 1540 Little Road. Come on out. We'd love to see you.
And that event is for all of Tampa Bay. So that's going to cover Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco, Hernando. We do have one question. When do you say we should call the police in?
Well, you know, one of the things I was going to talk about, a disruptive attendee, and I kind of slipped over it. I went past it. Anytime you have a person that causes your pastor or your members discomfort, you know, that sixth sense that you're talking about, local law enforcement should be on their way. When we found out about this guy, that we'll be talking more about it at these Church Safety Network meetings, we're going to give a picture of him because he's already told us he's been out and been in other churches. So we want to make sure that y'all are aware of him and the vehicles that he drives and the different things like that. So we're going to be sharing this information with you. But once we saw him and once he made us feel uncomfortable, we went ahead and got the deputies involved in it. So, I mean, we are fortunate. We have the luxury that they're on campus to direct traffic, and they have to be there for 3 hours anyway. So we got them involved as soon as we started feeling uncomfortable with this guy. If we take a look at the West Freeway Church of Christ shooting, they should have had local law enforcement on their way immediately because they saw the guy was wearing a disguise. He had a fake beard and a wig on, and he had upset other people to where they had moved away from him. That's how much they noticed him and how much they saw him. They should have had local law enforcement on the way immediately. If this person makes you start to feel uncomfortable, there's nothing wrong with calling for law enforcement to come there. As I've said 1,000 times, we would rather get there and it be nothing at all than get there after the event has happened. I mean, I'll go back to the West Freeway. They hadn't contacted local law enforcement when the incident happened. Local law enforcement should have been there way before it happened. It might not have happened. You don't know. We don't know. We never will know. But because they did not reach out to him, we do know that. We do know that. So as soon as you start to feel uncomfortable, get them coming your way. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not like they're going to look at you and go, okay, you only get one more false call and then we're not going to come here anymore. That's not the way it is. But if you feel, if it causes your pastor, your members, any angst at any moment in time to where you feel like somebody should be taking a hard look at this guy, get them up there. Get them up there. Thanks for the question.
Sure. And then John Perone was just mentioning that it was a perk of being in the children's ministry. He noted which contact card was his when he was filling it out for his child and was able to give that to the on-site officers to take that. And then we've had a request to try to live stream Saturday. So like the Facebook group, Church Safety Network, and let me see what I can do. I'm going to try to do that. I can't guarantee that it will work. And then we don't have any more questions.
We might can do that.
I'm going to try.
We might can do that. We'll see. The pressure's on. All right. Church Safety Network. Every Sunday night, we come out on Facebook and do a Facebook Live. We talk about the things that we're seeing around the country. Sometimes I rant a little. Sometimes I get a little excited. But come out, because we're always talking about stuff that is happening out there. We're always talking about things that we're seeing that could be affecting the churches. I really want to stress this as much as I possibly can. If your church does not have a safety team, they need to start talking about it right now, because we're going to see, whichever person does win, we're going to see civil unrest, and especially in the churches. If you've been paying attention, you've been listening to me on the Facebook Lives, you know that I picked up a couple of things from the Pope saying that there should be civil unions. It should be put into law, which I thought we were supposed to keep the church and the state separate, the church and the government separate. But yet he put in 2 cents worth, saying that it should be a law. And if one of the people gets it, there's a guy by the name of Beto O'Rourke that's already talked about taking away 501c3s. And he didn't say if you perform same-sex marriage. He says if you disagreed with it. Now, that's really kind of hitting us. You know, if we disagree, if our church posts that we believe marriage is between a man and a woman, one man, one woman, that sounds like you disagree with same-sex marriages. So does that mean that your 501c3 status is taken away from you? That's something to be paying attention to, really watching it. If you are thinking about setting up a safety team, we do have stuff out on YouTube. We have a paid site where you can go and look at a lot of the training that we've been doing. The church conference, the church safety conference, the video is out, correct? Correct, Wendy?
It is out, and I've posted the link for it.
So it's on our website, so you can see it, but you can download that and get some incredible information, especially on human trafficking, church policies, things that you need to be protecting your church on, children's safety. There's some good stuff out there. USCCA, they came out and spoke. TITEC, just some great, great stuff out there. And we do have these free resources. Like I said, if you don't have one now, download these resources and you can kind of start putting together your safety team. Membership, $25 a month. You get online. You can look at our online stuff that you can show and share with your team. You also get a ticket to the annual Church Safety and Liability Conference. And of course, your membership supports the ministry. Also, ways to support us: if you do a church membership, which is $125 a month, or if you do it for a year, it's $100 a month, and you get 5 tickets to the conference. We come out and do training for you, and of course, we're also always looking for donations. USCCA, can't say enough about these guys. We're trying to get them to where they're going to do some more training for us. But if you carry a weapon, even if you don't carry a weapon, in this crazy world, if you have to defend yourself, this is some protection right here. If you had to use any type of force at all to protect yourself or your family, they will come in and help you on this. They provide top-notch education, training, and self-defense legal protection for all responsible armed or unarmed Americans. Join now to gain true peace of mind with USCCA's legal and financial protection and support our ministry. They're really good. We're affiliates of theirs, and they're really good to us. And that's it, unless somebody has something else.
I don't see any questions.
If not, thank you for coming out tonight. God bless you. God bless this country. Be safe. Be praying for this country. And we'll talk to you real soon. Have a great night.